All right, are we ready? Great. Well, I'm calling this meeting of West Linn-Wilsonville School Board into order. And Ms. Douglas, will you please call roll? Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Thank you. All right, great, thanks. And the first thing we're going to start with are reports from our students, and they are Zooming in because of this early hour. They might even still be at school. Oh, let's see, I don't see them. Let's try this. Why do I have an echo? Probably coming through here. Yeah, I'm muted. Well, let's see. Yes, Miguel. Okay, yeah, I'm still going to echo, but
Also reminded. Remember when you switched? So
Miguel, go ahead and start talking.
Hello, can everybody hear me? All right. So this week was a crazy week, as I'm sure you guys already know. It was homecoming week. So with all of that being said, Spirit Week went great for our school. We had a lot of participation, especially on Country Club versus Country Day. I love seeing everyone dressed in their country club attire and their country attire as well. And then there were so many games this week. I feel like the highlight game this week was definitely LaSalle Prep School versus Wilsonville. It was a crazy game. It was the girls varsity volleyball, and we ended up winning on the fifth set, which was really crazy. And it was exciting because we had not gone to 5 sets in a while. And so the game was super tight, but Wilsonville ended up making it out. And then homecoming was this weekend. On Saturday was the dance, and students did very well keeping their masks on and like trying to stay distance. And then whenever they needed water, which the school provided, they went off like very far off away from the softball field in order to drink it. And so they managed that a little bit better than I think the staff anticipated, which was really great to see our students cooperating with COVID restrictions. And then as well, you guys can see on the photos, we have choir, which is starting back up, which is very fun, getting to sold out at 7:30 a.m. every morning. And then I was part of homecoming court this year, which was very fun. Although we didn't get to do handshakes, we were still able to go out there and then just cheer up our grades. And then the last thing is that this is Hispanic Heritage Month. So for MedCha, we are thinking of having an event, hopefully soon. And that's what school has been this past week for Wilsonville.
thank you, Miguel. And Michelle Quinn.
Good afternoon. The first few weeks of school passed, and I'm happy to report that they went smoothly for the art tech students. I know I'm not alone when I say I was nervous to move to Wilsonville High School, but thankfully everyone has started to adjust to our new surroundings. Although some of us may have gotten lost in the halls during passing periods, we have started to get familiar with our new school. Even though Art Tech may have moved, we still have a place to call our own. The Art Tech Hub is on the first floor by the library. The hub is a place where students can take a break during class if they're feeling overwhelmed. Some of us also eat lunch in there as well. Most Art Tech students, including myself, have crew and English in the hub first and second period. There is a coffee, tea, and hot chocolate station for both students and staff to enjoy. Like I mentioned, most of the students at Art Tech have crew and English in the hub. In crew, our teacher, Kate Gady, has been teaching us different ways to relieve stress and release our emotions through different means. These past few weeks, we learned to release our stress and anxiety by painting. We didn't have to paint anything in particular. Instead, we covered the paper in different colors of our choice in whatever way we wanted. The papers we have painted have been turned into a collage and put up on one of the blank walls in the hub for everyone to see. Other than crew and English, classes have been going well. Students, including myself, have taken advantage of the new classes offered to us at Wilsonville High School. Our principal, Nick Chapin, and Kate Gady have been working individually with students to find what classes are the best fit for them, whether it's changing class periods or entire classes altogether to make sure that each student is comfortable with their schedules. An Art Tech tradition that we are hoping to bring with us to Wilsonville High School is the all-school field trips. In the past, we have taken trips to the Pacific Northwest College of Art, the Portland International Film Festival, as well as taken tours of several colleges and universities. We're hoping to have several field trips throughout the school year, starting with a trip to Leaf Farms later this month. On the first day of school, we were asked what's one thing we're looking forward to this school year, and almost everyone said that they couldn't wait for graduation. Now, graduation may still be a few months away, but I have no doubts that there'll be many amazing moments along the way. It's safe to say that everyone at Art Tech is excited for this new school year and everything that's to come. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. And Lucinda.
Hello, everybody. I don't think my slide got shared. Did it? I don't believe so. I have it on my end, so I'm just going to screen share if that's okay. Can I get a thumbs up from somebody that we can see it? Okay, great. So we also had homecoming week at West Linn, and our homecoming dance was this Saturday night with our homecoming game being that Friday, and we had Spirit Week leading up to it. So these are some pictures from the week. On the left, you can see some people dressed up on pajama day, which was Monday. And then on the right, you can see that's me, and that's one of my math teachers, T-Laugh, and then a fellow student on Spirit Friday. I was also on homecoming court, so that's why I have a sash on. And then that middle picture is from our dance, which we had on the tennis courts. And once again, we had really good mask wearing. People were good at stepping back when they needed to drink water. We had way more people there than we expected, which was super exciting. And then I also wanted to talk about a new element that we added to homecoming this year, which was called Most Spirited Senior. So I, along with the other ASB officers, picked 6 people to represent our senior class. And every day I hid a spirit stick, which is a decorated baton. You can see over here on the picture on the left, this guy is holding the spirit stick. That's what it looks like. So I hid it around the school, and then every day somebody had to find it. And then by the end of the week, the senior who had found it the most times was crowned Most Spirited Senior. So that was a super fun event that we had, and people were following it on our Instagram. And we got a lot of participation from those 6 seniors. And then our Spirit weekdays, we had Pajama Day on Monday, which obviously a lot of people dressed up for. It's easy to wear pajamas. And then on Tuesday, we had Jersey Day, and we held a spike ball tournament in the main gym at lunch, which was so much fun. Excuse me, that's the bell. School just got out. And then on Wednesday, we had Country Day, Western Wednesday, so much participation, and we had some bingo on that day. And our SRO actually called out the bingo numbers. And then on Thursday, we had Westland Trivia. And Joe Cerny, who's one of our football coaches, actually did the trivia questions, which was super fun. And on Friday, we had karaoke. We had a ton of participation from the student body, including myself, sing at karaoke, which was also so much fun. So we incorporated all these new events into the week just because we couldn't hold our normal homecoming assembly. We still wanted to get people excited for the game, which we sadly did lose, but we did have a lot of people there cheering it on. So yeah, that was our homecoming week. It was super fun, and I was so glad that we actually got to all be together and celebrate homecoming and celebrate West Linn. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, Lucinda. Okay, I think at this point, I don't know why I keep echoing. Okay. We also have joining us remotely, Katie Meyer. And I'll hand it over to Dr. Pryor.
Do two things right now. First, provide the board an update on our mentoring program for the district and recognize a very special West Linn-Wilsonville leader, educator, and mentor, Katie Mayer. So I'm going to start with some information about the mentor program, which is also replicated on this slide up here. And as you probably know, the West Linn-Wilsonville district invests quite a bit of time and effort into hiring the very best teachers that we can find. And one thing we know that once we bring them on board, ongoing support is necessary because teaching is such complex, soulful work. And so the mentoring program makes a difference in two main areas. The first is in teacher retention. And if we could go back one slide, please. That's the one I'm on now. There we go. Teacher retention and the quality of instruction. The graph or chart on the right-hand side shows some research-based experiences that we know many beginning teachers have, and that they start the work with incredibly high levels of anticipation and enthusiasm. And then they start moving into the work ethic required to be a successful teacher, and they move into what we call survival mode because their learning curve is so steep and their work ethic so high. And then they often reach a kind of a dip right around November, December, where they start to wonder, is this the right work for me? And am I making a difference for students? And then typically, especially with right levels of support from peers, their principal and mentors, they start rejuvenating in March and April, and ideally reflect on their work, and if supported well, begin to anticipate the next year and even learn some skills for avoiding this disillusionment dip and more effectively influencing student achievement. So that's where mentors come in. Mentors are coaches, cheerleaders, and facilitators. One of the biggest jobs that they do is help our new teachers identify all the things that's going well. What we know about amazing teachers is 1,000 things might go well in the day, and they lose sleep over that one or two students, who aren't doing well in their classrooms. And so we help build upon their success. And then the mentoring is really special because many of our teachers come with strong experience, excellent education, but much of that education is in school, master-based settings. And the mentoring helps continue that learning. Like, it's in job embedded learning. So they're learning while they're doing the work. And so our mentors employ collaborative cycles of inquiry where they bring forward strong questions of practice and help lead toward measurable outcomes, both in terms of teacher practices and student learning and achievement data. So our mentors and teachers meet weekly to co-teach, observe lessons. They look at student work, they review achievement data, and then when they're ready, they even visit peer classrooms. Next slide, please. Now, our mentor program, and this is where we move into celebrating Katie Mayer, it is guided by the Oregon Mentoring Program Standards. And it began in 2008 with a grant written by the then Deputy Superintendent, Dr. Jane Stickney, and the former Human Resources Director, Kathy Monroe. That grant was accepted, and that began our official mentoring program. And that's when we reached out to former Principal Katie Mayer, who assumed the role of a program implementer. She was the mentor for all new teachers in our district. In her second year of the program, she also mentored beginning principals. And she, in addition, conducted mentor training for the Oregon Department of Education. She served in a variety of mentor roles in the district until her official retirement in 2019, even mentoring on a volunteer basis. And I will say she's not officially done because she's been helping me train our new mentors for this year. And Katie Mayer is a special person to the district because she, in some way, while she was a highly, highly effective and successful an innovative principal at Willamette Primary for many years. She was perfectly suited to be a mentor also. Katie is a deep believer in the capacity of people to be a strong educator. She's an incredible cheerleader. She has a heart the size of Oregon and will do whatever it takes, whether it's, teaching, co-teaching with you, bringing you chocolate, hooking you up with someone who can model appropriate practices. She's incredibly persistent. And I will say too, like in terms of believing in people, I have a special relationship with Katie Mayer too, because she hired me as a beginning teacher, even though at the time, I think my entire wardrobe consisted of t-shirts, shorts, and questionable haircuts. But her feedback helped me grow into a much stronger teacher and leader. And her efforts into this program continue to this day. It's been so successful that even though the grant is not available, the district has taken on mentoring because we see the outcomes. So it's funded by the school district now. It's overseen by the Department of Teaching and Learning, and it's seen as a leadership opportunity for master teachers to step out of the classroom for 2 to 3 years, mentor beginning teachers. We have one at the primary level, one at the secondary level, and then they step back into the classroom and allow 2 more master teachers to step out. So from 2017 to 2020, Diane Crystal mentored our primary teachers, and Laura Flossie mentored our secondary teachers. We did take a break during the height of the COVID pandemic, but this year we're proud to bring it back into place. And Sarah Bradley Colt will be mentoring primary teachers, and Jay Schauer mentoring secondary teachers. And again, I just want to iterate, the reason we're continuing forward is we've seen such success based on the vision and the heart that Katie Mayer brought to the organization. So we did want to honor her tonight as sort of the visionary person that brought this program to life, who supported so many great teachers in her role as principal and mentor, and continues to serve the district today in a volunteer capacity. So with that, I don't know if we're going to turn it over to Katie Mayer for a few words.
Well, I want to say I'm very humbled, extremely humbled, and I'm very gratified that the district has continued this program through all the different things that have happened historically since the program began, which includes a recession a while back. Initially, when the program started, it was under a grant, and there were 7 districts that were included in the grant application that Dr. Stickney and Kathy Monroe wrote. They really took the leadership on it. And when the recession hit, most of the districts quit mentoring. And I just really applaud the district and district leadership. Obviously, Dr. Ludwig, Dr. Swason, it's hard for me to say David Pryor, Dr. Pryor, but Dr. Pryor, who, yes, I've known since he was a beginning teacher, and got to unofficially mentor him as a teacher. I was the one who went to his classroom and asked him if he had thought about school administration, and he told me I was crazy. And I remind him of that, and he still thinks I'm crazy. But I then had the opportunity to mentor him as a beginning principal. And I just want to say to the board, it's such a wonderful district. I've obviously had a hard time leaving the district because I so believe in the values of the district. And the West Linn-Wilsonville School District works so hard to hire great people. It's quite a hiring process to make it through. And when people from above provide great support, and there are teams there to support teachers and to support new principals, it's huge. But if there also is someone that can be there every week, hearing the teacher and or the principal's concerns and questions, it's like, wow, look out. And I'm really pleased that I've just seen teachers over the years change their roles, find success in different ways, go into the IC role, become principal. I told David I felt a little bit like a failure in my role of mentoring beginning principals because David left that role and went to district office. Jennifer Patterson is now Assistant Superintendent for the Department of Ed for the state. Patrick Miggs is at district office in the Beaverton School District, and Saskia Drexler is at also at the Department of Ed. So I feel kind of bad. These great people have left the district, but I just think, man, when there's so much support from all different directions, people can just, there's no limit to what people can do. And I thank everyone in the district again for allowing me to be in this role. It's one of the best roles, maybe the best role I've ever had. When your role is to just support a teacher and student success, or a principal and student success, it's such it's such an honor to be in that role. And I can't thank you enough for my opportunity to play that role in the district. And as I've told David, I'll do whatever I can to support the success of the program in the future. And I just really appreciate that the district has continued this commitment. So thank you so very much. As I say, I'm humbled and I'm honored.
Thank you so much, Katie Mayer, for being here today to receive this recognition and for all the work that you've done over the years. I know a lot of those people you named who have moved on to serve public education in other capacities and other roles. And as you know, when one of your leadership qualities is to grow leaders around you, then your legacy lasts for a very long time. So thank you for that work. Are there other members of the board who would like to say anything? Oh yeah, here's the, I don't know where the camera is. Here's a plaque. It's going to be delivered to you in some capacity. Yeah, I can read it. The West Linn-Wilsonville School District and Board of Directors recognizes Katie Mayer with sincere thanks and appreciation for your continued service, support, and care by providing mentorship to teachers and principals of our district. And it has this month and year, October 2021.
Thank you.
And we'll make sure that you receive that.
Thank you.
And we're going to hear from some board members, and I'm sure Dr. Ludwig as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for having the vision to start this mentoring program. As a first-year teacher, I was on that graph of so excited to start sharing my love of biology with my high school students. And by December, I was applying for jobs in other areas because I didn't think I could keep up this level of teaching. And so had there been a mentoring program around like this, and I was in a different district, I may not have had to waste that time applying for other jobs. And I would have just been able to focus and have, I think, so important where it talked about, it's not even someone just to meet with you, but to encourage you and to cheer on those teachers, because first year teaching is hard for all of us who've ever, first year anything is hard, and first year teaching, you're grasping for curriculum and trying to figure out how you're going to use it to make sense. And I was watching every video at that point, videos that was on the different units that I was doing. And so just thank you so much. I think that is such a vital opportunity that we're now giving our teachers. And I think not only adding to their success, but saving them the time of applying for jobs in other careers, which I'm so grateful. I stuck it out that year, and every year of teaching got, I'm not going to say easier, well, a little bit easier. I still work just as hard, but much more enjoyable. And just thank you for starting such a great program that I think is so needed in our district. And thank you to the district for continuing to promote that. And even though the grant is gone, to making that a priority for our teachers.
I will say that it is one of our most frequently asked questions after the interview process. When we when we're done asking the candidate questions and then we say, you know, what questions do you have? And you've had now 3 or 4 interviews, and you've learned a lot. They'll often say, you know, do you have a mentoring program? And, you know, thankfully we can say, actually, yes. And Katie's incredibly humble. The work that she has done in assembling that program and the training she had done at ODE aligns well to the expectations of what quality instruction should look like. It's very user-friendly. It makes sense. She's able to do what we call train the trainer, so even training the mentors. And just also, she's incredibly personable. I remember getting the job as superintendent. Katie came to visit and she sat down, and one of the first questions she just said is, and how are you doing? You know, just how are you doing? And after a while, I realized she was mentoring me. I said, is the program now extended into superintendents? Because I'll sign up for it. But it's just how she just really wants to know how you're doing as a person, and then trying to make sense of the work in front of you and the resources that are out there. And she's able to call that into her, the mentors then take on that kind of approach, and it really becomes something really important in the lives of our teachers. They certainly have their colleagues as great supports. They have their team and their PLC. They have their ICs, APs, and principals. But to know that someone who's walking in the door isn't a part of that world, but just is there today with a cup of coffee for them or a candy bar and says, just how are you doing? Making sense of this all. And so it's such a gift and a very strong program. They're often helping young teachers put up bulletin boards while they're talking, or, you know, so conferences are coming up. What are you thinking about? You know, how do you feel ready? What questions do you still have? So it's very practical help too. Katie, you're just a gift to all of us. You were as principal. I remember being in the IC at Stafford and always looking up to you and your strength of leadership and your humility and your kindness and compassion. And that's who you've always been to all of us and in service of children. And so we're just glad that we're taking this moment. We should have done this a long time ago, but I'm glad that it's this board that gets to know you and to understand your story and to get an insight into our program. So thank you for everything. So. And we hope something came to your home a little bit ago. We had a thank you
Yes,
basket sent to Katie's home.
thank you.
Okay, very good. We will move on to the board and superintendent reports. And I think Director Wyatt, you were going to give one, but the topic is being postponed a little longer. Is that correct? Are you going ahead?
If it's okay, I'd like to just preface something that maybe we'll talk about at a future meeting. Like many people, I've watched the events in Newburgh with the Newburgh School District unravel, and their decision to remove the Every Student Belongs policy is frankly heartbreaking. And I keep thinking about those students and how scared and alone they must feel. And so for background, for any of our visitors, the Every Student Belongs policy protects children in the classroom. It's a legislative action that created the policy, and it was really championed by student voices and the advocacy of Oregon high school students in 2020. And so to read directly from the policy, it recognizes that student health and safety are the cornerstone of education, and that all students are entitled to a high quality educational experience, free from discrimination or harassment based on perceived race, color, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, or national origin, and without fear or hatred, racism, or violence. And the policy, which we have here, also prohibits 3 of the most recognizable symbols of hate: the swastika, the Confederate flag, and the noose. These symbols traumatize students, obviously, and prevent student access and success. So there's a quote that I often think about, that your focus determines your reality. And as a school board, I think that we should reaffirm our focus to our students. There's been so much news coverage of Newburgh's deplorable actions. And so I would love for us to reaffirm our focus on District Goal 1 and the Every Student Belongs policy, so our students know that we are taking this seriously and that we are focused on keeping students safe, promoting their success, and fundamentally disrupting systems of racism. And I just think it's important so our students know that we are not sitting quietly and that the type of thing that's happening in a neighboring community won't happen here, because I don't want that heartache for our kids, and I don't want our kids to feel scared and alone like we've heard so many students in Newburgh feel. So what I would love to see happen is for any of my fellow board members who are interested, work with staff and with me on a statement that we could potentially approve at our meeting on the 18th. And then we could share that widely in the district to, again, share our focus, share our affirmation that all students are welcome. And I really just think this will be a loud reminder that we're committed to equity and equitable education system, and that we reject the hatred and bigotry that we're seeing happen almost next door. And so just fundamentally making a statement saying that we have no tolerance for hate in the West Linn-Wilsonville School District, and then working on that together and then making that statement. So I would love to see that happen. I don't think we need to necessarily vote on it, but that would be something that we would work toward and then approve at the meeting on the 18th.
All right, great, thank you. The only other board member who will report today will be myself, and I just extend gratitude to my board members for being willing to forego some time to allow for a briefer meeting so that the board members and district staff could get on to the next meeting they need to attend. So I'll just briefly speak to what I know board members have been doing. And then in November, we'll have opportunity for everybody to speak and report on whatever you want. But I know that all of myself and fellow board members attended curriculum nights across the district. They've been attending learning sessions with the superintendent and other administrators, taking a deeper dive into the work of the district. Learning sessions that are being offered by the Oregon School Board Association have been attended. Homecoming festivities have been attended. One-on-one conversations with parents in the community have been attended. Emails have been read, and I am sure I am missing some things. But just a moment to say, like, we continue to do the work of engaging in our schools and our communities, even if we're not speaking about it at this moment in time. And with that, I'd like to hand the floor over to Dr. Ludwig.
Thank you. All right. Our theme, as we remember, is leading with purpose. Lots of opportunity to start the year with that. Next slide. You've already mentioned some of those September events and activities, curriculum nights, and unfortunately they were virtual again this year. Hopefully next year we'll be back in person. But I think, you know, we've gotten to this ease of how to have virtual conversations, and some teachers pre-recorded and had Q&A. And we do know for some parents, it allowed them, when there was a conflict of time, to watch the recording later. And to not feel like they missed something because they weren't live there in person. So we're learning a lot about how to capture some of those asynchronous benefits, even when we go to more synchronous or in-person opportunities. So there's just a snapshot of a few people. You can see a principal giving a message. You can see principal sharing their screen and talking through some important points together about kicking off the year. And then teachers then would come on and in their classrooms or all together with their team have messages for families. So I want to thank our staff for putting together exceptional curriculum nights this year, and for our parents and students who attended. On the next slide, I just want to let you know COSA once again hosted an incredibly powerful equity summit. This is, I believe, their third or fourth year of having an equity summit, and Dr. Muhammad Khalifa spoke. You can see in the screen on the left that it was a hybrid conference. So some people were over there at the Washington County Fairground in person in a large room. If they had proof of vaccination, they were allowed to be in the room. And then some, just for convenience, like myself, I had a lot of things going on, we're able to watch from our own offices. And Dr. Khalifa is the author of Culturally Responsive School Leadership. So taking that framework of culturally responsive teaching and some of Zaretta Hammond's big ideas and moving it into what does it mean then to lead with culturally responsive thinking and mindset. We do have that book for each of you, so don't go buy it on Amazon, Dr. Taylor. I know that, Director Taylor, I know you're always looking for a next book to read. We've got a copy for you. But it was great to have Dr. Khalifa here and with all of us describing his framework and helping us think about how we could apply that. A couple of things we might want to think of as a district is that his institute does have training modules that could come in very handy as we get new teachers who come on board, and they could benefit from some of those equity modules. And then one of his organizations called Adjusted, with the word just in there, does do equity audits. So we thought, especially with some prompts from some of you, how do we know the impact of what we're doing? Could it be a benefit to us to also think about another organization taking a look at our work over the last few years and giving us some critical feedback on where they see we've made some strides and where are those places that we don't even recognize still we need to keep doing the work. So we'll be in touch with him and his organization, and he's made himself available to school districts in Oregon and wants to partner in the work. So it was a really beneficial event. A number of our teachers were able to go. A lot of our school leaders were able to, especially with it being hybrid. They could kind of drop in and out while still at work. And then on the next slide, as many of you, as you mentioned, Director King, a lot of events that I know a lot of you have been attending, outdoor fun runs that our schools are still putting on. There's events of football and soccer and volleyball, and it's that one on the bottom left. I could only get to that volleyball game by watching it on the screen, so I had to dial into the OSAA network and got to watch West Linn girls volleyball while I was doing something else. But it's been great outdoors and watch our students. A number of things in middle schools got cross country up and going, so just to see our students active with each other outside of school is really heartening as well. So thank you for attending so many of those events. A couple other things we've started back up in September. You've heard about the teacher mentor program that we were glad to get back on board. It's great to have our professional growth Wednesdays back again, that time when we break from instruction a little earlier in the day for teachers to gather together, whether it's principal-led or teacher-led, and engage in learning together. On the left, you can see a picture that's Michelle Murphy. She's one of our reading specialists this year. We moved her into that role, and she is over at Beckman Creek giving an introduction to the literacy handbook and working with some teachers there. We also were able to resume, thank you, Dr. Pryor. Oops, go back. Our K-5 World Language Program. So we know we have dual language at two of our schools, Lowry and Trillium, but often our community doesn't know that we have a thriving World Language Program, K-5. In other words, in all of our elementary schools, starting in kindergarten, every child gets the opportunity to be multilingual. So in 6 of our primary schools, they all start taking Spanish lessons in kindergarten, all the way through 5th grade. And in 3 of our elementary schools, they take Chinese. And this was a decision we made a number of years ago, Director King remembers, when we were exploring dual language and we were researching all the benefits of being multilingual. And we said, why should that benefit, especially for young brains, only happen for a small group of students? And if we can't bring dual language to everyone, let's at least bring world language to everyone. So we started it simultaneously in the same year. 2 of our schools do have the dual language program, but all of our schools have instructors. And just like kids, when they go to music or go to PE, they go to their world language class. And they're starting to learn Spanish or Chinese. We took a hiatus with the pandemic and everything being online. And we were really pleased this year to bring that program back. Our instructors who are native speakers are really glad too. They've missed the students. They're glad to get the program reignited. And so students take, if they're in the Spanish program, they have a lesson live with the teacher. And then they also have access to Rosetta Stone. where they can practice as frequently as they want during the class time that's allotted to them, or even during at home, and accelerate as far as they'd like to through Rosetta Stone. Chinese Rosetta Stone is a little more challenging, we've discovered. So instead of that, we actually have 2 lessons a week with a live instructor instead of 1 live and 1 with Rosetta Stone. It's an incredible program. We're the only district in the state of Oregon that has a K-12 world language program. The closest you might get is Woodburn, which has a very robust dual language program where students can enter one of 3 tracks, either Spanish and English, Russian and English, or English only. But other than the 2 of us, our district is the only one where we have a world language program that's K-12. And when students get to middle school, they can keep learning Spanish and Chinese if they like, or they can switch. When they get to high school, they could continue. And that's why our biliteracy seal rate has gone up, and we have more students with multilingual proficiency when they get to high school. And we know all the benefits of being multilingual, not only for your brain, for your language assets, but also just as global citizens. So it's a program we're incredibly proud of, and I want to thank Dr. Pryor for continuing to champion it. He works diligently with all the instructors, and it's our ICs in our primary schools who partner with that teacher and really help that program thrive. So we were pleased. You can see the picture on the right are the teachers and the ICs, and they're coming back to, let's look at our curriculum, let's remember strong instructional practices and how to get that program up and going. The next slide, we've been busy. This is a slide of a really exciting meeting that we've been waiting for as well. We've been doing a lot of talking before COVID hit about our 3rd high school and all of our high schools, and the career pathways and programs of study that would be at each high school. And this was a meeting that Nick Chapin, who we've hired to finish up the senior year at Art Tech High School and then open the new high school. He and Laura Nappy, who is the director of our internship programs, put the meeting together with Dr. Jennifer Spencer-Imes, who oversees our high schools. And we invited all the high school teachers who have CTE certification or who've been very invested already in programs of study, and came together and said, okay, where are we? Let's get back on track. We've got this new school opening. We've got this vision, as Director Thompson knows, and then just solidified what's going to be, again, those career pathways and focuses at each of the 3 high schools, so that we have clarity about the 3rd high school, and Nick can then strategically start to put information together, materials together, networking with the community. And am I allowed to say which 3 we landed on? Okay, good. So we are at the 3rd high school is going to be health occupations and health sciences because of our proximity to Meridian Park Hospital. Business marketing. So we know that's often when we ask students, what would they like to know more about financial literacy? And the 3rd one that we're excited about is construction. We feel like it's perfect venue with our operations center there. Students are very excited about building and designing. It can have architecture focus as well as design focus as well as construction. We feel we've got great internal experts as well as people in the community, and it's a field a lot of young people are now interested as they think about tiny homes or they think about their footprint in the world. And so those are the 3 we've landed on as the pathways. And then we have the other 2 high schools with their pathways as well. So we'll start to get more information about that out to the community, but it's exciting to get our staff back together talking, not just about COVID safety protocols, but actually about something else equally important and our vision ahead for our 3rd high school. So I want to thank Nick and Laura for putting together a great meeting and getting us back into that exciting conversation. And thank you to a number of you, next slide, who attended. It was great to get back with our partners in the community. Thank you for attending our Linn-Wilsonville First Responders Joint Work Session. Thank you. Director Thompson was there, and Director King, Dr. Taylor, and Director Sloop. So thank you. We had about 65 to up to 70 people participating, and that's even with some folks who said, gosh, we couldn't be there, or our supervisor was not able to attend. You can see in the small slide at the top right-hand corner, our partners represent the Wilsonville Police, Westland Police, Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office, Clackamas ESD First Student, and then often the two cities, Westland and Wilsonville, sometimes will send their city manager, and they've created some new positions at each of the cities around people who are responsible now for emergency preparedness. So that was interesting to learn. Our first meeting is always just updates. And so we provided updates to each other so that we know where our work intersects. And then subsequent meetings, we do what's called tabletop exercises, where we take a scenario and then we work through it and we see how all the agencies fit together as they think through that scenario. So we'll start to do that. We've got typically 3 to 4 meetings a year. But it was great again to get that group together and to meet some new folks and put faces with names and recommit to our partnership around safety together. And then the last thing I just want to share is, as you're thinking now as a board, you've participated in these curriculum nights, you've heard the big launch, and now you're thinking about getting out into schools, and you're thinking about school work plans. I just wanted to provide kind of a connecting overview about how these systems and plans that you're going to hear about work together. And there's 3 to keep in mind. One is the district continuous improvement plan. You'll hear a little bit about that as you get ready to go into schools. The other is each school has a work plan. So while the district has a plan, then each school has a nested plan. And then you also know about our equity action plan. So how do all 3 of those connect, align, and interact with each other? So the next slide, just very briefly, the district continuous improvement plan is one that the state of Oregon expects each district to put together, and they have some criteria for that. But the idea is to really determine what's working, what needs to change, how are you going to engage stakeholders, how are you going to then leverage effective practices to make that change happen, to implement a plan, and then what data are you going to use to monitor, and how are you going to stay accountable to your plan. So those are some of the key ideas. Currently, our plan that, well, last year the state waived updating, asking each district to update it because of the pandemic. So we've been still living with our 2019-20 plan. We just extended into 2021. And we're waiting to see if the state is going to expect a formal continuation. But either way, we're going to keep going with those goals because they're worthy, and we've got a lot at stake with continuing with those plans. The next slide just shows you the big picture. You can go on the website, or we can give you a copy, but it's not flashy looking. This is the template from the state, the continuous improvement plan. It really is kind of a working document. But essentially we have 3 large goals, one for high school, one for middle and primary, and you can see those there. And then what the plan does is it takes each of those levels and goes a little deeper into what high schools will do, middle schools, and primary around some strategies and measures of evidence. And that's still, again, at a district level. So it's still a pretty broad plan, but it identifies some targets by the end of 2021, 2023, and 2025. So the idea being stay long in these goals because they should be big and meaty and robust goals where you really want to see effect change. The next slide shows that alongside that district improvement plan, when you go to your schools that you're going to decide on at the work session, you're going to see a school plan. And the school plan should connect with the district plan. So if you heard in the district plan about reading and math, you should be ready to hear, what are you doing at Willamette Primary or at Beckman Creek around reading and math? And that's where principals will share how it's actualized in our school are around these things that we're doing. There might be some alignment with some other schools that they're doing some collective work together, but they'll also have an individualized school approach using their data and some of the moves that they want to make. In the school work plans, because these are ambitious principles and everything is so connected, they're also going to talk about school culture, and they're going to talk about social emotional learning, and maybe goals around equity and inclusivity, or how they're reaching out to parents. So you'll see both those academic goals around reading and math, but you'll also hear about, other goals that are happening at a primary school. And then similarly for middle school, as they're working on reading and math, and then high school. So the idea isn't that they are competing, but that there should be a large umbrella at the district plan that then manifests into the school work plans, and there's alignment. And then the next slide shows alongside this comes the district equity action plan. And we have those 4 commitments, and some of you have been in some listening sessions around that. The 4 commitments that help us really think with an equity lens around that work. And so again, it's not meant to compete. And often in the equity plan, you'll see some nod towards or acknowledgement of work around a curriculum area that might be in both the district plan and the school work plan. So they start to work together. The equity action plan will reflect work that our schools are telling us they're working on, as well as an opportunity for at the district level to nudge us into the next work. Maybe because it came up in an equity audit, we might say this is some work we need to lean into or lead into. So it's reflective work as well as some nudging around things that are coming up. And then last slide is just a reminder, what is the evidence of our equity work? And Zaretta Hammond reminds us that when students of color are making gains academically, that's equity work. It's not enough just to study racism or racialized systems. That's important because they can present as barriers, but there needs to be a difference in the student learning outcomes in the classrooms. So that's how it's all connected as well. We can't have an equity action plan that's not connected to our continuous improvement plan, which is about also academics. We should see the impact happening in both. When students feel safe, included, they have access, it should show up in also how they're learning and how they're feeling a part of the community. So that's when you have your work session in the 18th, you're going to be talking about your visits to schools, your learning walks with me and others. And by that time, we'll make sure that you kind of have the district plan. You'll hear about the school plan. We are updating the equity action plan. There's going to be a recursive process with that, a lot of input. And we should start to see these feeding and fueling each other in a way that feels really connected and redundant in some ways, in a good way too, and a lot of alignment. And you'll be a part of listening to that and also giving feedback. The last slide just shows that we do want to engage stakeholders in each of these plans. Not only is it your board goal number 3, but it's also the strength of these plans. And in the district continuous improvement plan, you'll see how we work through surveys and conversations with families to ask about what is it you need to see the district continue to work on. The school work plans will be shared through either PTOs or PTAs or monthly meetings that the principals set up drafts and gather input. And our district equity plan has often has opportunity for people to read and give input, but we also have the district equity team that has staff representation giving input. We have our parent equity team called SACRE that gives input. And then this year, we're going to be instituting a student team that will be giving input into our equity action plan. So as you're engaging in these plans and seeing the connection, be also listening for, and how are our stakeholders engaged? What was their input? What was their feedback? Because I know you're also looking to do some listening sessions out in the community and thinking about how are we hearing what's important to our stakeholders and our families, and being mindful of that as we plan forward. So that's just kind of getting us ready and setting the stage. You've had these great launches with the curriculum nights. Now we're going to go deep into the work, and you'll have these documents to take alongside with you. And if we have time, we can take questions, but I know we've got, I'm just looking at Chair King. I can always take questions through an email too later.
Yeah,
So-
I was checking out that time also. I think we're right on schedule. And if we start asking questions, then maybe we'd get off
Yeah.
that. So, but I will just take the liberty to say that that third option conversation is so exciting to watch it coming to fruition. So thanks for the good news. Okay, we will move on to the portion of the meeting, which is communications and comments from the audience. And I do believe we had no official public comment via email. Has that changed? Oh, did I pass that? Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, great. Let's do that one. Yes, so the consent agenda, we can entertain a motion on that.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, great. We have Director Thompson with the motion and Director Taylor with the second. This typically we don't have discussion, so I think we can just call the vote.
Thank you. How was Aye. Phyllis Taylor?
Aye.
Chelsea King?
Aye.
Christy Thompson?
Aye.
Kirsten White?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So now we can move on to comments from the audience. We do have somebody signed up. If you're here and you wanted to speak and you did not sign the sheet, then please do so. But otherwise, I will go ahead and just say a few things about how this works. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you taking your time to visit us, and we want to hear your thoughts and recommendations and opinions. This is an opportunity for us to listen, and we won't engage in dialogue. It's just an opportunity for you to be heard. It's an opportunity for the board to hear you, not necessarily for an audience outside of the board. And we do ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes, that you state your address, because we are often curious on whether or not people live in the district or outside the district. And I think those are the main things. And with that, it's Cheryl Doer. Oh, Door. Oh, thank you. That's helpful.
Okay. Is it okay if I pull this down to speak? Okay, thank you. My husband and I came to the very first in-person meeting, and I never got
Door,
a
may I
chance.
interrupt you for just a second? I apologize for that.
Is that better?
That is going to be better. And would you please just let us know
Oh,
your
my
address?
address.
Thank you.
19337 Suncrest Drive, West Lynn. My name is Cheryl Dorr. Yeah. My husband and I came to the very first in-person meeting, and I never got a chance to thank you personally, because you had such a warm and welcoming, from the outside greeters to inside, your smiles, and I just wanted to thank you for that. I'm not sure other boards do that as much. It's the first time we have ever been to a board meeting, but I have emailed you on occasion, and Kelly always responds back. Dr. Ludwig always responds back. And I just think that speaks volumes of what this district is about and what our board is about. But I thought, well, today I'm going to come thank you personally. So my husband and I want to thank you for your leadership and your hard work to get our children back in school full time every day. No one could have imagined that our world would shut down for 18 months. How to navigate this, how to educate, how to move forward was filled with impossibilities. We thank you and applaud you for how you did it. It was far from ideal, and yes, our kids lost a year of connecting and learning, but our teachers did their best. And now our grandsons are so excited to be back at Trillium and Rosemont and West Lynn, masks or no masks. They want to be in school. They love their teachers. They signed up for whatever was available, starting with cross-country, orchestra, clubs at school, of which there are so many to choose from. And I'm so thankful to you for that excellence. Many districts have not done this, as we've seen around in our greater Portland area, and some families are still on a roller coaster trying to figure out how to get buses to their kids, how to await quarantine until they can get back in school. And so emotionally and mentally, they still are in a roller coaster. And we are so thankful our kids are here with you. We thank you. Football games are back. Homecoming dance at Westland High, you had out on the tennis courts. How fun for those kids to experience that this year. Our schools are truly the lifeblood of our communities, and we see that when families gather together go to sports events, cheer their friends, cheer their peers, cheer their children. It's a really healthy thing to have. It goes without saying that we are diverse and we all have our strong, passionate opinions. But what we can agree on is we want our children to look forward to getting up every day, eager to go to school. We want them to learn. There is so much for them to learn. We want them to be kind and respectful to all peers, teachers, and parents. We are now grandparents, but we've raised 3 children in West Linn, and they all are teaching their children how to honor and respect the dignity of everybody. We credit much of who they are to you, along with our church parent values. We are believing that West Linn will continue to be thoughtful and wise as you make decisions and policies that will impact our families in this wonderful community. Thank you for not jumping on the train of emotional persuasion, but staying the course to give our children the education they so rightly deserve.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dorr. All right, we can move on to board general business. And let's see here. That will be the Department of Teaching and Learning and Dr. Soyson.
Yes, this report is a brief annual report. And some of you have heard it before, and we just stop every year and go through assuring you that we have met the Vision 22 requirements and standards. And, you know, the 6-page memo that you received is meant to let you read the summary of each one of the standards and, you know, to check to see if you have questions. The idea of this, just to remember, is that this is reporting on last year. And so this is saying that everything was in compliance for last year. Next slide, please. So the idea is the Oregon Department of Education, like all departments of education, is trying to have this to where you look at where you are and you look at where you're going. And some of the things within those standards that you saw will show this. And the language that they are using about high quality educational experiences and equitable outcomes is from ODE, and they are signaling a real shift in commitment to that in these equitable outcomes for students, and being very clear that these are meant to be looked at as a floor and not a ceiling. So when we say that the West Linn-Wilsonville School District is in compliance with all of the standards, we also look at it as, and now what are we going to do? You'll notice if you look at some of them that some of them are very broad, saying, yeah, we have a process for adopting curriculum. Some of them, the ones about anabolic steroids, are very specific. And that's because in looking at that safety measure, you know, they need to be. So the other thing that is looked at is that it's meant to be that when the district informs the community publicly, then this, of course, is posted along with the actual standards on our website. And that's a commitment to our community. And that actually fits with the ongoing, and with what Dr. Ludwig was saying, is within those standards, you'll see things in the work plan that really get to, and how are we actually using them? What is our not ceiling, but soaring beyond the ceiling, you know, to working with those, you know, for all students. The other idea is they always encourage you, and the way these standards are set up now is we're looking ahead for next year. And now that we're in the 2021-22 school year, that's exactly what we're doing. Next slide, please. So some of the adjustments, and I'm just going to briefly speak to those and give you a sense of direction, is in 2020, 2021, most of them were due to the pandemic. So there was not a kindergarten assessment. There was not in last year an essential skills assessment, tag identification, vision screening, and some legislation that has been in the works for the last 7 years around time for physical education and physical activity. All of those things were stalled. However, there were some things added. The Ready School, Safe Learners, that was a standard. So you'll notice that we spent a lot of time with that Dr. Spencer Iams led us through having blueprints and plans for all of that that's still ongoing. And that is something that really mattered. Director Wyatt spoke to Every Student Belongs, and they're very clear that that is also a standard now. The other one is suicide prevention. And that's something that is now a standard area. And just want to highlight those because those are things that are expected. This year, in looking at this, the kindergarten assessment continues to be suspended, but it's not just because of the pandemic. It's also that the Oregon Department of Education, and this is similar to some other states, has embarked on a look at all assessments, the quality of them, and the ways that they're implemented. And that assessment is just an example of one that was meant to highlight what are some of the before children begin school things in partnering with other community agencies that should be in place that the kindergarten assessment might show. In using it, they've seen that maybe it didn't give them that information. And I only mention that because the other one that has been talked about is the essential skills. And the essential skills, in looking at that, the assessments are still required. And the actual part that's under revision is how they will be used for high school graduation. But this is something I know that some of you have asked about, and that there has been some confusion about that. And that's part of the state of Oregon looking at how does this all fit together, not that we aren't going to have these assessments, but there's looking at this review until the 2023-24 school year to look at improving it, not taking it away. However, the grades 3 through 8 and 11 assessments are still there, as is the education plan and profile for students to graduate from high school. So I'm just highlighting that because it's one that was misunderstood. The Linn-Wilsonville pieces that we're paying attention to are also in line with when we have been working with tag identification, our goal has been around the equitable outcomes. So for example, students of color, students who are emerging bilinguals, and students who learn differently or have learning disabilities have often been very underrepresented with that. So you look at that identification by broadening and deepening your measures, and that's something that we're looking at. However, we're also looking at our offerings. And some of you have heard us talk about that before. We are still looking at the depth of that work and how do you look at the content, what students learn, how quickly they learn it, the processes, and then the actual opportunities they have for different products. And so that's we're paying attention to. The daily, weekly physical activity minutes, and I'm choosing that instead of just PE minutes because there's ongoing conversation about what was initially given as numbers of minutes, 150 for K-5, 180 for grades 6-8, and how now, there's looking at how can other kinds of physical activity be looked at as part of that. Finally, we're continuing the health and sexuality education work that we were doing. We have a task force, and this year, before the end of the school year, there will be another comprehensive sexuality education plan brought to the board for approval, and that's an every 2-year piece. Our district does have a 27-member task force made up of stakeholders that include parents, teachers, and staff who are working, counselors, nurses, just representing all aspects of staff. So those are the biggest areas that I'm just touching on, and just want to see if you have any questions.
Director Thompson, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. So the physical education requirements, you said now for K-5, it's 150 minutes a week. For 6 through 8, it's 180. What was it before?
That's what's being discussed, and there are plans being submitted. And right prior to the pandemic, they were looking at, this doesn't necessarily mean just a PE class. This could be, would there be some sort of plan where students have opportunities to get up and walk between classes,
Okay.
where students have something where they are doing some structured activities that classroom teachers would have them do, as opposed to just doing this set 30 minutes. And it's still under discussion, as of this week, in terms of what that will actually look like. The intent behind it is weaving in physical activity during the school day. There's discussions about, could it be looked at as a percentage of a school day, along with a menu of ways to get physical activity? And that's really where the discussion is right now. There's interest at all levels in looking at making sure that we don't just say, let's add minutes to a class period, as opposed to let's look at the real heart of it, which was physical activity and quality physical activity.
So the 180 is what it's going to be, or what it is now?
That's what during the 2021-2022 school year we are working into. And when we think about that, when we think maybe children aren't in a PE class for that amount of time, when we look at, I know what we are looking at this year with activities outside during recess, that's the goal. And other districts, for example, and even in Clackamas County, and we're in touch with, say, Portland School District, Beaverton School District, what they're doing, they're putting together composites of the actual class, the actual, what are recess opportunities for children? What are walks, look like between classes, things that we think would be helpful overall anyway. And we've learned that, as we return from the pandemic.
This is unique legislation, because typically the state and the State Department, while they might say it's important to teach health and physical education, does not dictate to a district and exactly how many minutes. This was a unique legislation that was passed a number of years ago that all of a sudden had this reach and ascribed minutes. And it became quite challenging for school districts, especially during times when there was a recession, and some school districts removed PE altogether or music because of staffing cutbacks. And so all of a sudden, how do you balance having this legislation alongside real staffing needs? And also, in its first iteration, there was a real insistence these classes had to be taught by PE teachers. So now school districts are looking at, we have to build 2 gyms. How do we manage going from, like in our district, we had PE twice a week. Now it would be every day in our primary school. And in some school districts, maybe they had it once a week. And so it became a real challenge around implementation, which caused some stall and some more negotiating and conversation. And then slowly some definition change. Well, what does it mean to have physical activity? What could count? So it's been a number of years, as Dr. Soyson mentioned, around 7, that we've kept kind of pushing on this legislation that went from this Division 22 typical standard of make a plan for a curriculum area to we're actually going to dictate how many minutes children have to spend in something, which is very unique. So we're all working through it. And I would say we're further along than some, because at least we have PE still, and we're just looking at increasing it. And for some, it's been a real challenge around just getting some basic physical education restored in school districts. So you'll be hearing more about this in the coming months and years. It's something to pay attention to, and really appreciate Dr. Soyson leaning into not just that standard that we're working on, but all of them. So.
Thank you so much, Dr. Soyson. It was a pleasure to read the memo and to just get a real sense of the complexities of what, what you're applying with this legislation and standards and whatnot. So thank you for organizing that so comprehensively for us. All right. And now we can move on to Dr. Spencer Iams and the Student Investment Account Grant Update.
Good afternoon. Thanks so much for letting me come connect with you today about this important work that's going on in our school district. And just as a reminder, and I'm really glad that Dr. Ledwig gave you those kind of nested components of our continuous improvement plans and schoolwork plans, because this really lies right alongside that when we think about the work of the student investment account. So on the next slide, it's just the little visual at the top is a little reminder that the Student Success Act was very big legislation here in the state of Oregon that came about from a lot of stakeholders really leaning in and saying, how are some ways that we can really support funding some key components of education that would support outcomes for students. So Oregon School Boards Association, Oregon Educators Associations, all kinds, the administrative associations, business associations that are really interested in having well-educated folks graduating from our schools came together and passed this historic legislation, the Student Success Act. And that has three buckets or components to it. One is the student investment account. That's about half of the Student Success Act funding. And then the early learning account, which supports a number of different early learning hubs, early childhood special education, a number of other important components there. And then 30% went to some other important statewide education initiatives. So we're really reporting on that big bucket, the 50% student investment account. And the student investment account came with very clear goals of focusing on meeting the needs of students' mental and behavioral health and increasing academic achievement for all students, including reducing academic disparities for students in a number of categories. Students who had been economically disadvantaged from different racial or ethnic groups that have been historically experiencing academic disparities, students who experience disabilities, students who are English language learners, are foster children, or are homeless. So all of these categories, as we think about those goals in our continuous improvement plan and that equity action plan that Dr. Ledwig was talking about before, we know that sometimes we need to put in additional focus and area and supports to help us get there where all children, each and every child, are reaching those goals. So here's a very, very skinny timeline. The summer of 2019 through the spring of 2020, we were heavily involved in a lot of community engagement processes. So during that time, we had a number of surveys, we had community meetings, we held focus groups for particular families, particular students. We called homes, we had community surveys, a lot of ways to engage our community and try to hear different voices at the table to help us determine what are the priorities that we really want to pursue with this student investment account money. Through that engagement, we developed a plan with 7 strategies and some very specific activities under each strategy. I included that in your memo, but I'm not going into all of those today, just for brevity of our report here. We brought that plan to the school board, and the school board approved that plan with an estimated budget. The best information that we had at that time was that we would be receiving about $7.5 million to really implement those 7 strategies and work alongside all of the other work that we're doing to make those student outcomes that we wanted to see. And then right after that board meeting where we approved that plan is really when COVID became such a clear impact, and things began to shift. So in summer of 2020, we received our actual grant amount for that year, which was almost $2.5 million, so significantly less. And not only was that funding less, but our general fund was in many ways impacted as well. So it was a time for a deep breath and a centering in what we're going to get there, but it really truly was a setback because we were looking at pretty good economic outlook for the future, and then having the Student Success Act come on top of it. So we thought we would really be able to increase. And then we had to reevaluate in that summer, not change our plan, but prioritize what could be implemented right now, what would we need to wait on until things got better. So on the next slide, with that $2.5 million, we did get some things done, and we're very proud of the activities we moved through. We had already been planning on online and blended learning as part of meeting the needs of all students. Of course, with COVID, we really upped that considerably, but we were able to use some of that money to hire those online coordinators to help us implement that giant program of our online schooling last year for almost 1,500 students. We were able, in the time of some economic challenge, to really maintain key staff to support students' mental health needs, including social workers, school psychologists, and school counselors. Maintaining key staff around working with students with academic disparities. We really maintained a number of different staff there. And then one addition we were able to bring forward was a data tool to support us in listening to student voice in different ways around social emotional learning. And that was, we adopted a tool called Panorama that it has a series of surveys for students that helps get at some of the things we've had as strong beliefs and we've invested in for quite some time. Things like, how is the student growth mindset? What is the student's ability, how do they feel empowered to solve problems? How do they feel about the school climate and culture? What sense of belonging do they have at school? How connected do they feel with their teachers? So that was a really important tool that we added last year. And not only was it that data tool, but it's a really awesome curated opportunity for a number of different tools that can provide options of lessons or interventions or supports or ideas that, if you notice, a number of your students are saying they are not feeling they're not feeling empowered in terms of self-efficacy. What are some things you might be doing about that as a school? So those tools are curated. They include a number of the top publishers for social emotional learning and some equity and inclusion lessons as well. The other really exciting thing that we did last year was hiring our new bilingual family support specialist and launching our Family Empowerment Center. I know you've heard a lot about that through other presentations, but we did want to hire that as part of our SIA funding. So we are seeing some outcomes, even with this reduced investment to start with, and it gives us great hope that as we are able to increase that investment in the future, we want to keep building on these strengths. So we have increased a lot of community partnerships. We've increased connection to resources, particularly for our Spanish, primarily Spanish-speaking families. Lots around suicide prevention. Dr. Soyson was talking about suicide prevention being explicitly in the Division 22. We are really proud that we have a strong and comprehensive suicide prevention program in place. Parent nights that really are supporting those our collaborative skills around supporting all of our students. So I think I'll just pause there and see if you had any questions about the student investment account and what we were able to do so far. This is the official annual report on our spending from last year. This will go into the notes and will be uploaded to ODE that we've officially reported to you. There are a lot of, with this amount of money, Also, a lot of safety net things in place to make sure that we are very accountable with these funds to our taxpayers and all the folks that work together to bring this forward. So we do a lot of reporting on this, and some of those reports need to be brought forward to the board. And it's a great opportunity to share with you something that you've been excited about, bringing more resources to our students all along.
Thank you. And is the pause, mean that the presentation is continuing, or is this the end? And I just ask.
Let me be clear. That's all I have to
Okay,
present,
great.
and I'm open for questions.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. I'd open the floor to other school board members, and if not, I'll jump in, but if you want to. No? Okay.
When you gave us that day in September, that extra day of care and connection and community, it was time for our teachers to delve into some of that panorama data of surveys that they had gotten from students around some of those ideas around belonging and what do you need from school and who's an adult that you connect, so they were able to then look at some of that data that they had in the spring, they hadn't had a chance to look at. And then to be thinking about, then how do we open school this fall, knowing what our students are telling us and some of the information we've gleaned. So thank you again for giving that day that allowed us just to slow down and really delve into some of what we've learned from our panorama survey.
I remember hearing a lot
Assessment.
about that panorama survey in the fall of last academic year when I had the learning walkthroughs. My questions are, well, just honestly, when I read this, I couldn't help but feeling pretty upset because I'm hearing news that Oregon is receiving record revenue. And in fact, there's gonna be a kicker, maybe $2 billion kicker. And so part of me is like, wait a minute, this SIA was well vetted, it was thoughtful, it was long overdue, it was critical. And we're not the only school district who put a bunch of effort and plans into this. So I know things were uncertain and unpredictable, but I can't help but think, how are we going to keep this funding sustainable and reliable, because school districts like us and others can't do this kind of work and make those kinds of hires with the threat of the money may not be there. So I guess I'm just asking you, like, what does a fluctuation like this, even while the economy is blowing up in a good way, it's robust, what does a fluctuation like this mean for our future implementation of these types of moves? Can we do them, and how can we do them strategically and wisely with that type of uncertainty? And what does the state need to do, if you have any answer on that, like as school board members, if we were to talk to legislators or decision makers, like what can be done to stabilize the funds that are coming from this grant? So I know those are kind of big questions, and I'm springing them on you, but that's what came up for me.
Well, I appreciate those questions. They are, and as you see that fluctuation there, you think if we were to go up and down like that every year, it would be very difficult to have the competence to hire staff that we have anticipated hiring in this plan. I will say that, a lot of wisdom from our district early on allowed us to not cut staff and maintain staff earlier. So that, I think, continuing to look for opportunities where we maintain other sorts of savings so that we can support when we need it might be part of the strategy. But I think our state is always looking for ways to stabilize, and so that the educational funding isn't as volatile as it is, because that's what's so difficult to plan, as you all know, because this is ultimately you're approving the budgets every year. And it is one of the biggest challenges of Oregon. We have really good years, and then we have really challenging years. And what we don't have is a lot of stability between those two. So that is one of our biggest challenges. I don't know that I have in this forum a lot of wisdom to share about how we move for that, but I think stability is probably a word we would like to hear more and more spoken about in the funding for education in Oregon.
Dr. Spencer-Imes, when do we get, the number was, the 2 million, 2.4 million, when do we find out our number for this year? And how, I'm just curious how that compares, because while it's frustrating to look at, we thought we were getting 7.5, we got 2.4. I also want to acknowledge all we did with the 2.4 and that's exciting what we were able to do. So what do we know the number that's coming at us? And my thought is if it's up to close to the 7.5, I'm super excited about what we could possibly do with that extra revenue.
Yeah, we are, things are looking more encouraging this year for the money that we are anticipating to receive. We have been able to move forward with a few of the positions that we, for example, our additional social worker that we hired for our high schools, we're funding that position out of the SIA grant, several other positions like that. I'm gonna look at Director Hughes. Do you remember the number offhand? Is it 6.7 this year? 6.1. So still not quite back up to what that original estimate was when we first were building the plan, but certainly an increase over what we had this year.
Yeah. Did you want to say something else, Dr. Ludwig, before I move forward? I see you poised on your microphone.
Yeah, I think I was just going to echo Dr. Spencer-Imes' comments that stability and even the general fund has been an Oregon problem for years. And you've probably heard many proponents of public schools say we need to get stable funding, because when a district vacillates constantly and you feel like you're just starting to invest in something and then you have to abandon a program or even a core component like PE and music, that's really hard. And so you don't feel like you can go all in with an idea, because if a year or two later you're pulling that staff away or cutting that program, it's incredibly frustrating and kids suffer from that. And the community feels, like a rug was pulled out from under them. So we have this sense of cautiousness. We got this grant and we got excited, and right away this reaction happened. So even though we've got this optimistic number, there is this cautiousness that's just pervading all school districts. Like, do we really build a program that's 6.1 million if we don't know 2 years from now we're going to get that? So how do you carefully and slowly start to build some infrastructure that if the grant doesn't sustain, you've got some ways to maybe continue it with your general fund, if that's going to be robust. So as board members, just stay on top of this topic of stable funding in Oregon, and keep putting the press on leaders and legislators and those who are running for offices around the priority for stable funding for K-12 schools. Because this is a grant, but it's a grant where we're asked to do a lot with it. But like any other grant, what if it doesn't stick around? The hope is that this one will, because there was so much community involvement that they felt maybe this grant is more widely understood, more broadly supported by businesses. And if you recall, there was a tax that now goes towards funding this one. So as long as that tax doesn't get repealed, or that legislation doesn't get repealed, there is some assurance that this grant will stick around, whether the dollar figure, goes up or down. But it is around that corporate activity tax, if you recall, is the one that's funding this Student Success Act.
Okay, thank you. The final thing on our agenda, just to touch on the next meetings, and our next one is October 18th, and we have a plan to discuss the listening sessions, schoolwork plans, learning walks. We can, I will be out of town, so you know that. I think Vice Chair Thompson knows that, so we can talk about if I'm going to be facilitating the meeting remotely. I'll be present, but I'll just be zooming in, so that none of my board members are surprised by that. Anything else we need to talk about for upcoming
That
meetings?
We'll be here in the room. The setup will be a little different. We'll have tables, so we'll be around a table as a work session. We'll put the owl back in the center so it can still be broadcast as a public meeting. And then be thinking about those three components, your listening sessions that you're thinking about having with the community, the school work plans and the learning walks. And maybe we'll put some ideas around what is the purpose of each of those? What would you identify as the purpose of each? What's the structure that you might want to think about? Some of it I might give you some structure, like the learning walks have a structure to them, or the school work plan might have a template. What would be your role in each of those areas? And then what's the intended outcome? You know, why have each of those? So we'll just kind of put maybe a framework together, and then you'll be adding into that and having conversation about how you identify, again, the purpose, the structure, your role as board members, and the outcome in each of those. And then by the end of the evening, you should have a nice document that you've collaborated on collectively together that kind of guides that work.
The school work plans and learning walks is something we've done in the past. And so that's already something has a little bit of, we have experience around. And so I like the idea of talking about the purpose and the structure and the role and intended outcomes. It just helps us as we move into that. The listening sessions is a new topic born from the retreat that we did in our board goal, our district goal number 3. So that'll be something that we haven't done, at least not in my memory, structured exactly this way. So that'll be something a little more really intentional around, you know, the purpose and our roles.
It would also be helpful if that evening we could clarify or come to a decision about which schools you'd like to visit for the school work plans. Doesn't mean you can't visit all 15 schools throughout the year in other ways like learning walks, but the ones that you want to learn about their work plan. So, you know, come with in mind schools that you'd like to learn, be ready to barter and negotiate with each other. And be thinking about, you know, how do I get an idea of a primary and a secondary as well? Not everybody can visit the high school. We only have 2 and there's 5 of you, but, you know, a balance of primary and secondary would be helpful.
And in the past, I think we, rather than arm wrestling over in front of the owl, we had a sign-up sheet that went around, and I think we just indicated our preferences. And so we might be able to do something like that.
Yeah, you could do that since several of you are new. I know by the time it got to the 4th year with, you know, some of the board members, they wanted to see a different school that they hadn't been to. So it'll just be a different dynamic. But however you want to organize for that, but I think come ready for that conversation. And if we can have a decision by the end of that evening, that would certainly help our principals in preparation for then putting those invitations out, scheduling those.
Okay, great. I think we're good to adjourn. We're adjourned.